And welcome into the Monday edition, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, brought to you by First Horizon, Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get it all. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ian Safar here with you on this Monday morning, live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership where the buzz is always about great service. Joe Rexrode, happy Monday morning to you. What's going on? How we doing?
Just take note that I did not try to speak before the mute.
That is true.
I could have, noticed that the mute was muted before I did that. Yeah, I'd like to apologize to you guys and to the listeners too. Listeners who count on my sweet milky voice all the way till 9 a.m. So I'll tell you a quick story, which I kind of told you guys last night. So I guess it was Saturday night, but it could have happened early. If anybody's ever had a tick embedded in them, you probably have had it before. You're like, when the hell did that tick get into me? I thought this was just some itchy bite. And it's like, oh, there's a freaking tick embedded in my skin. So Katie and I got back from Jones Jet and Billy Idol, which, by the way, it was a great show. They both rocked. And Dagwood was up in there just like pumping it, like, yeah, little rebel, yeah. But
there
Dagwood was just jamming out, man. Yeah. Dagwood also brought his wife like I did. But anyway, we get home, get the Uber home, and go in the house, and all of a sudden I noticed this tick, and I can't find tweezers, so I rip it out of my ankle. And I don't like, did it get in when we walked in the house? I mean, I don't know. I mean, has it been in for a couple of days? That definitely happened before. But anyway, last night, the bite started really, I didn't even really think about the bite Sunday, which is stupid because if I would have, I just would have gone to urgent care. So this is where the apology comes in. Then I notice it and I'm like, oh crap, are there any urgent cares? So if any medical, and there weren't, and so I have to cut out about midway through the show to go. But like, if anybody out there is a medical expert, I've been on the internet a lot reading about Lyme disease and how like you lose half like movement of your face and stuff, and it really sounds terrible. So if you're watching, if you're a medical expert at home, if you're a Twitter doctor, you look at that bite, it just looks like the bullseye thing. That's what we're worried about.
Yeah,
which could be a sign of Lyme disease. Here you go, folks. Here, this is some good radio and some really good video on radio of my bad picture of my tick bite. Oh, sorry. It just faded out.
We saw it.
See? Check it out. Okay. All right. Okay. So let me know on the text line driven by WilsonCountyHigh.com or on the YouTube chat what I have.
Yeah.
Am I going to die? Yeah, thank you.
The YouTube chat, let Joe know.
It sucks and you're going to die.
We're trying to avoid Lyme disease here on the program today. So we'll see if we can't do that as the show goes on. Ian, how we doing? What's going on?
Doing good.
I assume better than Rexrode.
Yeah, no tick bites this weekend for me, at least not that I've seen yet. Maybe a little bit of a streak of poison ivy, but I'm okay. Yeah, doing good.
Nature is winning the battle against Robby and Rexrode right now.
No doubt, right?
Good gracious. We need to get ourselves under control out here. We got a lot to get into on the program today. Corey Curtis from News 2 will be with us at 8 o'clock. We'll get his thoughts on all things Tennessee Titans later in the program. Lots of things going on in the world of sports that we'll get to. I've got a question of the day for us to get to a little bit later this hour as well. Going a little chasing Big Joe style, Joe. So
yeah,
prepare yourself for that. Prepare yourself for that. Joe, my apologies. Your beloved Toronto Maple Leafs and their Stanley Cup run comes to an end last night. They lose in Game 7 to the Florida Panthers. After shockingly going down to Florida and winning Game 6, I was stunned that they pulled that off. But they lost their 7th consecutive Game 7 last night against the Florida Panthers, and frankly, got smoked while doing so last night. 6-1 the final. They got booed off the ice at the end of it. It's almost 100% the end of the Core 4 era with Tavares and Marner being free agents this offseason. Joe, your thoughts on yet another disappointing playoff exit for the Toronto Maple Leafs to close out what is probably going to be the last time those 4 players in Nylander, Matthews, Marner, and Tavares are all together?
First of all, I'd like to thank them for winning Friday and giving me a big win and weekend winners. So I appreciate that, Maple Leafs. But then, as soon as they did, they showed all those Toronto fans, like every game now has to have like fans outside somewhere, like going nuts, so the camera come, look at these fans. They're like, yeah. I'm like, man, are you guys sure? Are you guys sure you want this? This is going to be more pain. But I mean, that second period, the Admirals would have smoked the Maple Leafs. Like, what happened?
I don't know.
It's just an incredible collapse, just an all-time, they've had so many of them. I will also say, I don't like, if you look at their team and Florida's team, like, I would say they did pretty well for themselves to take this to 7, right? I mean, Florida's the defending champ. Florida's a better team.
I agree.
So, like, you keep that in mind. Something like, we focus on their collapses and their failures and all the misery. I mean, like, this, it's not like this is like the best team in the league and they're underachieving, right? I mean, like they're a team with some very, very talented players. That obviously don't go together perfectly.
They don't. It's hilarious. It frankly is just continues to be funny to watch this happen. Mainly just because of the way that some of their fans act. Like, it's just ridiculous. They think that they're God's gift to hockey. So every time that this happens to them, it's kind of funny. So I enjoyed it last night. But I am interested to see what happens here. Like, obviously this ain't working. So, I mean, Marner's going to be gone. I'd be stunned if he's not gone. I think Tavares is probably going to be gone too. We'll see what happens on that front. But it is amazing. Like, they just flashed this graphic up on SportsCenter. I think them and the Avalanche have lost 7 consecutive Game 7s. Like, it's pretty hard to lose 7 Game 7s in a row. Pretty hard.
Yeah. No, wait, you're saying with the Avs, you're saying currently, or like at some point the Avs
Currently.
Did? Really?
Yeah. I mean, they're in their cup run. I don't know if they got to a Game 7.
Yeah, that's wild. No, it's amazing, and it's like, it really is like you're just setting yourself up for heartbreak. Even when they play well, it's like you're just waiting on that to happen. I saw Dan Wolken put this out last night. Like, what's the college football equivalent of like the Leafs? It's
a good question.
Someone pointed out like Notre Dame. Which I guess, although they just got to the title game at least,
Yeah.
So like that would be like the Leafs getting to the cup final that'd be pretty good. People would be, they could live with that. But yeah, I mean, it's just like, yeah, it's the fan base, it's the tradition, it's we're better than you, but also, like, I mean, now we're talking 58 years. Is that right? 58 years?
I believe that's correct. Yeah.
Oh, baby. Yeah, that's really, I mean, that was kind of, I mean, before Michigan won it last year, because they had a half of one since 1948.
Right.
Like kind of like the same idea. And they had a lot of like bowl games and things like that where they came up short. So that could be them too. A lot of fan bases can, it's like or even like the Celtics, although now they've been winning, but it's like those fan bases that used to have a lot of success, but now they think they're still good, but they're not.
The Final Four in the NHL, you've got Florida and Carolina coming up in the Eastern Conference, and then Dallas and Edmonton in a heavyweight matchup in the Western Conference. So 3 of the 4 teams in the conference final were in the conference final a year ago in the NHL. So we'll see if there's any different result between Dallas and Edmonton, or if Connor McDavid and the company punched their ticket back to the Stanley Cup final. On the NBA side of things, the Thunder destroyed the Nuggets yesterday in Game 7, which sets up Thunder and Timberwolves in the West, and those New York Knicks get it done against the Celtics. They're taking on Indiana in the East. What do you make of the Final Four in the NBA, Joe Rexrode?
I'm not going to lie. Like I'm not super excited about it. And it's not just because my beloved Golden State Warriors are out. I just, I mean, Knicks Pacers, man. Oh God. I just, like, the Cavs and the Celtics are the best 2 teams. I still totally believe that. And they both had injury issues, and I'm probably not giving the Pacers enough credit, but I think the Pacers are going to kick the Knicks' butt. And I think the Thunder are going to kick the Timberwolves' butt. And I think it's going to be Pacers Thunder. And boy, is NBA clearly fixing these playoffs, guys. Huh?
The two media markets that are just darlings in the NBA, Oklahoma City and Indiana. Get excited.
Yeah. My goodness. Okay, hold on. Ty says urgent care for a tick bite and no symptoms, and he's laughing at me. Well,
do you have any symptoms?
No, but
cough?
the whole point with this thing is supposed to be you need to get the doxycycline in your system before you have symptoms. If you get symptoms, now you're screwed. This is my internet expertise coming through. I read a lot about Lyme disease last night.
I am not the person to talk to when it comes to Lyme disease expertise. So I'm going to go with your internet research here and say that you're right.
Why do you have to laugh at me, Ty?
Come on, Ty. He's up on Rexrode a little bit. Scotty Scheffler getting it done in the PGA Championship, his third major title. It was fun to watch, Joe. I'm sure you watched every shot over the weekend of Scotty Scheffler and what he was able to put out there. Good stuff from him over the weekend. Look, I'm not saying I need to be real careful about what I say here because people freak out when you do stuff like this. I'm not saying he's Tiger Woods, okay? Not saying he's Tiger Woods. I am saying if you look at what he's done over the last year and a half, 2 years, all the numbers suggest that he's basically Tiger Woods. Like he's right there with Tiger Woods over the last couple of years. He's got 3 majors now, and the numbers are ridiculous, and he won by 5 shots yesterday in the PGA Championship. So pretty good stuff. Hope people appreciate it because we're watching pretty great player do his thing in the golf world right now.
All right. Clip that up. Headline.
I knew it.
Yep. There you go. Next Tiger Woods.
Even like the CBS broadcasters yesterday started talking about that. And they were like, we want to be real careful here. But there's a lot of Tiger Woods stuff that he's doing out there right now. And it's like, all right, okay. I get it. But let's let him do it for a little longer.
Yeah. How much of that did you watch of the 4 rounds of that tournament?
I would say less on Thursday and Friday. I watched some. I watched all 18 holes of Scheffler Saturday, and I watched the entire thing yesterday. So a pretty good amount.
So wait, when you say all 18 holes of Scheffler, that's just following the regular broadcast, or is that like
they had an ESPN Plus group that he was featured in, so you could watch literally every shot. So that's what I did.
That's pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, it was pretty nice. The ESPN Plus setup for the golf is pretty good out there. So congratulations, Scotty Scheffler.
Good to know. Exciting news for me.
Yeah, I'm sure that when you were watching the whole thing, that's probably what you were watching it on. You just didn't quite know it at the time. Big golf guy, that Joe Rexrode.
I get so into it that sometimes I don't even – it's like I didn't watch it at all. You know what I mean?
I do know.
I blank out.
I know exactly what you mean. 615-737-1025, our phone number. We're off and running on Robby and Rexrode. We'll take your reaction to the NHL playoffs, the NBA playoffs, Scheffler winning the PGA Championship, all in our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Plus, I'll get to our question of the day coming up as well. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Tune in for the Indy 500 race on 102.5 The Game this Sunday. Coverage beginning at 10 a.m. Coverage brought to you by Twin Peaks, home of the 29-degree beer. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Taking your thoughts on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. Mixed opinions from the text line and the YouTube chat so far as to the medical attention that Joe Rexrode may need for his tick bite, which somebody says, Joe, I think you'll survive, to which you replied rightly, it survives good, but Lyme disease is not really all that fun. It's not a joke. So hopefully we avoid the Lyme disease today. That's the goal of our program today.
Yes, like George said, you got to take care of a tick bite rather fast. That's all of the excellent internet medicine information I'm getting to. So, just trying to, like, you get, like Ty says, apparently he moved from Michigan. His parents are just like me, but he said that he's the, it'll be fine type. I used to be that type too, but you get to this age and, I assume that like a hangnail might kill me. So, and I got to hurry today because, flight to New York with no real ID. Real ID never came. Gonna be a great week.
Do we still have confidence that you can get on said flight? Or we talking road trip?
Wow. Yeah, I mean, apparently it'll just be more delays. So I just have to get there. But now, so I was going to be rushing right after the show for a 1 p.m. flight. And now I have to see someone, probably get antibiotics. So like how late, you know what I mean? How much is that going to push me back? So it'll be, I'm sure it'll all be fine.
I'm sure it'll be great. I'm sure everything will work out just perfectly for Rexrode today. 615. Go ahead.
Texter says, as someone who frequently works in the woods and picks up many ticks, you're being soft, Joe. It's fine. It's fine. I'm not saying I'm not being soft. I apologize from the start. I would rather be soft and be laughed at today. I hope I get laughed at today. Like, dude, this is like some like wolf spider bite or something. But I mean, I know it's a tick is a problem, right? So, hey man, let's all laugh at me. I want to tell the story tomorrow from my hotel room in New York of how I was laughed at and how everything's all going to be fine. Someone says Shania Twain has Lyme disease. Okay.
I believe Shania Twain has Lyme disease. You'll be fine. Is that true? I don't know.
Well, first of all, even if it is true, do you know that she doesn't suffer from it? I mean, like,
she does have Lyme disease, diagnosed in 2004. Got a tick while horseback riding.
Damn, stupid freaking ticks, man.
No joke. Now I'm like looking all over my body right now. I'm like, okay, do I have a tick? Is there any tick? I think I'm good. I think I'm good at the moment.
No, I mean, it seriously is like, and of course, here's another thing where I want to, you know what this partially is? Who walks the dogs in my house?
You do.
Who else does?
No one.
Thank you.
You're sacrificing yourself.
Yeah, exactly. I just come home every day and I just got ticks all over my body. And everybody else is just sitting around, not doing the dishes, not doing laundry.
So it's a rough life Rexrode lives.
Yeah. Glad to leave them today, actually.
Rough life. So, Joe, my question of the day, I'm throwing this out there, and I think it's an interesting one when you factor in the expectations for each team. Which team is going to have the best year this year relative to expectations? The Tennessee Titans, Tennessee Vols football, or Vanderbilt football? That's my question of the day. Who will have the best season relative to their expectations? The Titans, the Vols, Vanderbilt. Now, I think we know generally what the expectations for the Titans are going to be, right? I mean, I think their win total, according to the Vegas odds, is at 5.5. So not very many people expect them to be very good this year. Tennessee is interesting. They've dropped down a full win since Nico Iamaleava left and is now the quarterback at UCLA. So I believe most sports books that I've seen have them now at 8.5 as their win total in terms of the over-under. I think it was at 9.5 before that. So a 1-win drop, apparently, since Nico Iamaleava has left to be the quarterback. And then Vanderbilt, after a surprisingly really good year last year that came out of nowhere, Diego Pavia is back. And with that comes expectation for Vanderbilt to continue to try to build on what they had out there a year ago. So, Joe, I ask you, as we sit here and sift through this, looking ahead to the fall here, I mean, Vanderbilt's over-under win total is actually only 4.5, according to the FanDuel Sportsbook. So keep that in mind and use that for what you will if you're Vanderbilt. Which team will have the best season relative to expectations? The Titans, the Vols, or Vanderbilt, Joe Rexrode?
Okay, so give me the three again. So you just said 4.5 for Vandy.
4.5 for Vandy. Tennessee is at 8.5, and the Titans are at 5.5.
Yeah, I have to go with Vanderbilt. Now, look, with Vanderbilt, you think back to kind of the breakthrough second year under Clark Lee, and you think back to the huge wins over Kentucky and Florida, and then they weren't able to follow it up at all, the next year with A.J. Swan at quarterback, and they kind of went to Seals, but the Seals, Mike Wright had moved on. So, excuse me. Hope that's not the Lyme disease. But I mean, 4.5 to me, I just feel better. Like, I could see the Titans exceeding that. But I don't, I think that's probably about right. I think 8.5 for the Vols is, might be a little, I mean, look, I could see them. It's like the Vols have, I think the expectations for them are going to be all over the map with the fan base.
Yeah.
Right. But like 8.5, if we're using that as our guide, because I can see the Vols pleasantly surprising, like with Merklinger plays well or something. And it's like, okay, they still have a pretty good team, but 8.5 is with their schedule. I mean, you could easily find 4 losses on their schedule. I think now you can find 4 losses pretty easily.
I think you can. Like I'm looking at Vanderbilt, and Vanderbilt, they still, and it's the same SEC schedule that they had last year, just kind of the reverse of where they're playing. So they got South Carolina early. Like South Carolina, I think could be pretty good this year. They've got at Alabama, at Texas. Obviously, those games are going to be tough. At Tennessee, I'm looking. You've got Auburn at home, Kentucky at home. You've got LSU, and LSU could be pretty good. We'll see. There's all this hype about LSU last year, and they did not come close to living up to it. Missouri at home. What are they going to be this year? Like 4.5. Like I look at just the idea of Pavia coming back and what I think that offense can be. You got Charleston Southern, Virginia Tech, Georgia State, and Utah State as your non-conference games. Now, I realize they lost to Georgia State last year, so you have to keep that in mind. But I think Vanderbilt has got a chance to get back into the bowl game conversation again this year. I'm not going to go crazy and sit here and think that like Vanderbilt's going to end up with 9 wins this year or anything like that. Could they? I guess anything's possible. We'll see if they have a repeat performance of, going down to Tuscaloosa and knocking off Alabama again or something like that. But I'm looking at Vanderbilt's schedule, and I do think that it's gettable to certainly get past 4.5 and maybe to get back into that 6 or 7 range again if things break right for them. The Titans, we'll see. I think it's like almost entirely dependent on how good is Cam Ward, right? Like that's, if Cam Ward is really good, they'll probably get over 5.5. If he's not, if he's okay, then the rest of their roster suggests that 5.5 is probably about right. Tennessee is the one where I have no idea. I have no idea how good Tennessee is going to be. I mean, I guess if Joey Aguilar comes in and plays well at quarterback and he's like just a perfect fit with what they do, I mean, could they be 10-2 and back in the college football playoff? Maybe. If he's not very good and they don't have much of an answer right now at quarterback and Merklinger's not ready and McIntyre's not ready, like they could be 7-5. I have no idea what Tennessee's going to be.
Yeah, like part of that's the thing, I don't know why. Just watching Aguilar, I think Merklinger is going to beat him up. We'll see. I mean, it was good to add somebody. And as we've talked about with him, like he was supported, air quotes, by one of the worst defenses in college football last year. So you have to keep that in mind when you look at like his performance regression. But at least there's competition there. And again, I'm holding off on McIntyre just as a true freshman. Yeah. Hey, if he pushes, really makes a run at it, in fall camp. I guess you could look at that either way. Like, my gosh, they don't have anybody, or it's like, wow, this guy could really be something. But for now, I've got to consider him third. Yeah, they're just it's hard for me to feel good about 9 wins, because that's what you're talking about. If you're exceeding expectations, would be 9 wins. I think this is to me, it's a Vanderbilt Titans is the discussion for me here, because you could certainly make a case if you look at the Titans schedule and just assume, like, Cam Ward, even if he's erratic as a rookie, I've seen enough from him to feel like he's going to have at least a couple really good days, right, this year, I would think. And so you look at their schedule, and you can get yourself to 6, 7 without too much trouble.
So that's the question of the day, throwing it out there. Which team will have the best season relative to expectations? The Titans, the Vols, or Vanderbilt? We'll take your thoughts on that. 615-737-1025. Let's quickly go to our 1025 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Welcome in Tim, who has some advice for Rexrode on the tick bite. Tim, good morning. Thank you for calling in.
Hey, good morning, guys. Just to let you know, I know it's all funny about talking about ticks, but I work with a guy who got a tick bite, and some ticks carry disease that when they bite you, you can't eat beef or pork anymore. He can only eat fins and feathers.
Oh, yeah.
So just imagine where you couldn't have steak or bacon or ham, or you could only eat chicken or fish. So, I mean, it's funny to laugh at them, but you should be careful with ticks. Don't let them get on you, because I can't imagine going through life not being able to eat a good steak anymore.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Thank you, Tim, for the call.
Bye-bye.
Oh yeah, I know. I have a relative who had that.
Right.
I guess it's called Abigail disease. I mean, can you imagine, like, what the heck would I do?
A lot of corned beef hash, I guess, with some ostrich meat.
That's that's actually sounds pretty amazing. Corned ostrich hash. That sounds. See, there's a positive out of all this.
Yeah. People do that. People eat, apparently emu, you can do it. You can eat emu meat. I'm
really
Googling right now. Yeah.
Okay. Well, if this whole tick thing doesn't work out for me, I'll find some new birds to eat. Thank you.
Gout is mental. No, it is not mental.
615-737-1025. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, brought to you by First Horizon, big bank muscle, small bank hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get it all. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ian Safar here with you on this Monday morning. Throwing it out there, which team will have the best season relative to expectations? The Titans, the Vols, or Vanderbilt? William on the text line says Vanderbilt should get a bowl game. I think Vandy will perform best versus the expectations. For the Vols, Nico was not what made or broke that team. We'll have a fire lit under us with Nico's disrespect that we'll go over on wins. Titans is Williams' big question mark. Honestly, ready to pick a new NFL team is what William says. So William about to give up on the Titans, apparently. Says that Nico was not what made or broke the Vols. Joe, your thoughts on that?
Well, obviously Nico was not great last year, but to me, the Tennessee as a playoff team, or Tennessee as a really good team this year, needs great quarterback play. They don't, like last year, they had elements that offset not having it. And again, I think Nico was pretty good. I think he got better. I think the Alabama second half was pretty freaking, he made some pretty clutch plays, man, in that game. So I just think that this year, my whole not whole optimism, but a lot of my optimism, they're still going to have good D. They're still going to be able to run the ball, that stuff. But a lot of my optimism was Nico's going to take that big step, and then they're going to be, in some ways, you could see how they could be a scarier team if that were the case, and if there was a great receiver to emerge. And now, it's just, I mean, look, you're throwing someone very young or very new to the offense and with frankly not as much talent as him, and hoping that you can do the same thing. I mean, I think that's asking a lot.
I don't know if pressure is the right word, because like I don't think that Clark Lee is in danger of losing his job or anything like that heading in this year. Obviously he did an outstanding job last year, and he adapted, to the first few years of his team that were very disappointing, and they had different results last year offensively with what they did with Jerry Kill coming in, and obviously Pavia being the driving force at quarterback. It was awesome, and it was fun to watch, and Vanderbilt fans loved it. Now, can you build on it, and what happens if you don't? Like, how disappointing is it? I'm looking at Vanderbilt's schedule if they don't get back to a bowl game this year. I mean, I brought it up. Their SEC schedule is not easy, right? Like, they've got some really tough games in the SEC. They do have a trip to Virginia Tech this year, and you got the big win against Virginia Tech at home last year, but you do have to go on the road and play Virginia Tech this year. So I mean, there is a scenario where they are like a 4-win team this year. I would probably still be surprised if it goes down that way, but Joe, let's say it does, and they're unable to get back to a bowl game. What would that mean? What sort of a setback would that be for Vanderbilt this year if that's the way it goes?
Yeah, it'd be a tough setback with Pavia back for sure. It's certainly possible. I mean, it's just, and like recruiting has gone well. It seems like they did pretty well in the portal. They just got a 4-star corner. Obviously that's we're talking about down the road, but I mean, high school recruiting, they've had some success. But yeah, when you have Pavia back after last year, to me, it's just 6-6 in a bowl game. That some Vanderbilt fans, maybe they're not thrilled by that. I think realistic Vanderbilt fans understand playing in this league, that's a darn good season for Vanderbilt football. But you come up short of that, and that's a disappointment. There's no way around it. It's a disappointment. It's a tough job, but last year we were talking a year ago about, we were talking hot seat with Clark Lee, and where is this going after the disappointment of 2023? What's the pathway to them winning? And all the stuff he did last offseason turned out to be brilliant, and so I mean, kudos to him. Pavia has been, to me, Pavia is already one of the most beloved Vanderbilt athletes. Maybe I'm overstating things, but I mean, I think just his swagger and his playmaking, I mean, it just is incredible. So to have him back, that is a huge, that alone is worth the price of admission, right? But yeah, then if you go 4-8 with that, it's like, man, it feels like a squandered opportunity. So I feel like Clark Lee did a lot to to stabilize himself last year, and we still always have to keep in perspective the difficulties of Vanderbilt football in the SEC. It's hard, man. But this year, you get to a bowl game. I mean, I think Vanderbilt fans expect that, and I think they should expect that.
Well, it's also you're coming off a year where if you asked this question last year, my answer probably would have been Tennessee. Like if memory serves me correctly, I think Tennessee's over under last year was I think it was 8.5. So like I think it's exactly what it is now. And I would say, well, you got Nico coming in, and what if Nico's really, really good? And Nico wasn't really, really good. He was good, and he got better as the year went on. They still got to 10 wins. But the actual answer to this last year ended up playing out Vanderbilt, right? Like Vanderbilt blew expectations out of the water with what they did a year ago. So you're coming off that, and does that raise expectations with the fan base even more heading into this year? Let's head back to our 102.5 The Game phone line. Welcome in Mike in Gallatin to the program. Mike, good morning. Thank you for calling in.
Hey, guys. Good morning. So I've been a Vanderbilt season ticket holder for football for as long as I can remember at this point. And I'm just trying to pump the brakes on, like, exceeding the expectations for myself because I feel like we've gotten to that point as a Vanderbilt fan before, and we've been let down in the past. What scares me about the way the season ended, we had a bowl game win that was nice. But if you watch the SEC games pretty much after the Alabama win, if I'm trying to remember the schedule correctly, they started to kind of figure Diego out. And there was some pretty not blowouts. We were still competitive, but you know what I mean? Like, yeah. I'm worried that the system's going to get figured out. And more than 6 wins is a crazy thing to even think about at this point. Like if we make it back to a bowl game, I'm excited. But I just kind of feel like that the SEC was slowly starting to kind of figure Diego out. And with the way the schedule's shaking out, going back to Alabama, like you guys said, having to head to Texas, that's definitely some pretty tough places to have to go in there, try to win. I'm just not seeing how you're going to get better than what you got last year. So I'm just kind of enjoyed what we got last season. It was just special, hoping for more. But as a Vandy fan, we have to kind of, keep our expectations at low so that we can continue just to live in that state that we currently live in, which is emotionless at times.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate the call. Joe, it is amazing. Like looking at purely the road games for Vanderbilt on this schedule. This is their road schedule this year: at Virginia Tech, at South Carolina, at Alabama, at Texas, at Tennessee. That's their road games this year. That's kind of crazy. Like that's an incredible road schedule there.
Yeah, that is tough. I mean, they do have they've got a lot of games that I think they're going to be favored in, or right, it'll be very close. But yeah, those probably take a toll collectively, just to have to play those teams on the road. And look, there's a physical toll, and there's also the emotional toll. You could definitely see a blowout or two in there. And then what does that do? I mean, last year's team, if you remember, look, they lost in double overtime Missouri game they should have won. You beat Bama, you beat Kentucky, lose by 3 to Texas. Beat Auburn on the road. The last two, to the caller's point there, 2 of the last 3, South Carolina kicked their butt. That defense absolutely swarmed that offense. And again, South Carolina had NFL dudes all over that defense, and They had a good plan. At LSU was a game they could have won. They lost 24-17. There's a game they could have won, but not a great offensive game. And then Tennessee was down big and ends up, beating them soundly 36-23. It's an interesting question of did defenses figure them out? I totally understand the sentiment. I think a huge part of last year, and not to say it won't happen again this year, that Kentucky game, they win. I mean, Pavia at that point could barely walk.
Right.
And he was dealing with that all year. If you look at how he ran compared to earlier in the year, then I thought he looked more like himself in the bowl win over Georgia Tech, 35-27 win. I still think that if you execute that offense and that they're as creative as they have been with, you got your shovel pitches, obviously you have a lot of option stuff. You have to demand, assignment defense from the defense, but then how well can you throw out of that? And if he takes another step as a player, if they execute, if they have good game, I think there's going to be some really good days for that offense this fall.
More of your thoughts to get to coming up next. Which team will have the best season relative to expectations? The Titans, the Vols, or Vanderbilt? This is Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Taking your thoughts on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. Throwing it out there, which team will have the best season relative to expectations this fall? The Titans, the Vols, or the Doors? Taking your thoughts, 615-737-1025, our phone number. Cam says, I think as a whole, it'll be a very meh year for all three of those teams. The Titans have the best chance, in my opinion, just based off the close games last year with what we hope is a better quarterback. Expectations are 5 to 6 wins. I think they could get to 8. This is from Cam on the text line. Joe, if I had to answer this question, my answer would probably be Vanderbilt. I think they can get to 6 wins again, as I said earlier. I think the one that has the chance to blow it out of the water the most would be the Titans. Like, I can't – with Vanderbilt's schedule, I couldn't see – much more than 6 or 7 wins. Like, I'd be stunned if they got more than that based on, just some of the road games I just said. You're going to Texas and you're going to Tennessee and you're going to Alabama. Like, it's a heck of a task they're going to have with some of their road games this year. The NFL, we've seen it, Joe. If you get really good quarterback play, and we'll see if Cam Ward can provide that immediately or not, but if you get it, like, that can go a long way in this league. So, like, if Cam Ward comes in and is really, really good, could the Titans get to 8 or 9 wins? Like, to me, when you're almost doubling your win total, that's blowing expectations out of the water at that point, right? Again, I don't know that I expect that to happen. I'm just saying, like, of these 3 options, the one that has a chance to, like, really exceed their expectations would be the Titans. The one that I think is most likely to actually do it, I would answer Vanderbilt.
Headline: The Game Nashville host predicts Titans have a winning record. I think I just heard you say that. You did say 9, right?
I
did say 9. Boy,
get after
it. If the Tennessee Titans in 2025 win 9 games, I mean, I think I might just sign Cam Ward to a lifetime, like a $400 million guaranteed contract immediately, without even knowing if it has anything to do with. As far as I know, Tim Boyle may just come in and sling it around. But
you see my point, right? Like, if he's great, then you've got a chance.
You do. I mean, the schedule is where does it? Does it rank like 4th?
They're 4th easiest.
Yeah. Okay. And again, I mean, being in this division is a good thing. I mean, the Jags have a teenager running things down there, and the Colts are just a complete bleep show. I'm sorry, Indy Ben, but my God, I mean, like, everybody in that organization messes something up on a daily basis. So you got a chance being in this division. I mean, like, I think that over-under is about right. I think they end up hovering around that, but yes, I agree that there's more runway for them. Whereas I'm with you, Vanderbilt. I definitely can find 7 for Vanderbilt, but again, you're still, okay. Like, do you think Auburn isn't pissed off and, like, determined to not lose 2 straight to Vanderbilt this year? I mean, like the SEC is tough. But I think they can do that. But I'm with, like, beyond 7, I think is really asking a lot. And then again, the Vols are very interesting. Like, some textures have been like, well, Vols fans are, unrealistic. But again, we're going by Vegas over under. And I don't think like Vols fans, everybody is going to have that preseason optimism in August, right? That happens to every fan base. So I guess maybe even more to that fan base. But it seems to me like people are being pretty realistic here. Like, look, it's just, there's a lot of question marks on this team.
There are. Now, look, they don't have, like, some unmanageable schedule here, right? Like, they've got a non-conference game against Syracuse, which I understand they don't have Nico, but I mean, Tennessee is going to be favored against Syracuse. I mean, matter of fact, I think last time I looked was like a week ago, and they're still a double-digit favorite. So, like, they're going to be a favorite against Syracuse. Obviously, they got Georgia in week 3, and that's, get them early this year. They typically play them later in the year. It's at home. They've still not really come all that close to beating Georgia. Like, they played really well against them for a half last year on the road, and then Georgia took over in the second half. So we'll see. If you get them early at home, is there a burst of energy there? I don't know. But you got Georgia, you got Mississippi State again, who I don't think is going to be very good. Arkansas beat you last year. You got them at home this year. You're on the road at Alabama, on the road to Kentucky. I have no clue what Oklahoma is going to be this year. And the Florida game is way late. Florida game is the second to last game of the year this year. It's in November.
So weird.
On the road. So it's a different type of schedule for them this year. But in terms of like purely the opponents, it's not like it's some unmanageable schedule. Yeah, you got Georgia and Alabama. You've had them every year. Other than that, like there's no real daunting game on there other than those two.
Right. And by the way, apologies for that. As somebody pointed out, like if the symptoms are not being able to mute in time to stop the cough from being heard, then and I already have Lyme disease. So, but I mute when I don't want to.
It's true.
But no, look, if you look at Tennessee's schedule, look, Alabama, it's not, we say Alabama, but is it Alabama anymore? No,
I don't know.
Until further notice, they're not. We'll see. We'll see where it goes under Kalen DeBoer. But right now, that's not obviously peak Saban Alabama. They still have a lot of talent, but we don't know what's going on with them at QB too. So Georgia's the only team where it's like, yeah, that might be. Even without knowing a lot of things about Tennessee's team, that's the only game I look at and say, yeah, probably keep your expectations low for that one.
Yeah.
And it's good. Yeah, it's good to have, to me, Oklahoma in your place this year. Even Arkansas. I mean, and I think Kentucky might stink. I think Kentucky might just flat out stink this year.
Let's head back to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Welcome in Tim to the program. Tim, good morning. Thank you for calling in.
Hey guys, I think it's going to be Vanderbilt for the very reason that y'all giving the excuses for his quarterback play. We don't know what Tennessee's got. We don't know how Cam's going to do because, when we got Will Levis, we thought he was the second coming to Mayo.
Nice. Thank you, Tim. Appreciate it. So quarterback play going with Pavia. Now, Pavia is great. Can he stay healthy? I think it's a big question. Hey, look, Joe, I am curious. They obviously did things offensively last year that people were not prepared for. Is it different this year? Like, can Vanderbilt and Pavia and that staff go out there and do it again in a league, Joe? Well, while recruiting has gone better for Vanderbilt, and while obviously they've made some good additions in the portal, from an overall roster talent standpoint, they still are not, Alabama and Texas and Tennessee and these places. So is the quarterback play going to be good enough to overcome that, where you're talking about 7-8 wins at the end of the year? That's where you get into, how much can the quarterback play elevate you when the roster is not Texas and it's not Tennessee and it's not Alabama and some of these other teams.
Yeah. Yeah. And, they had some losses too, some skill losses. I mean, Eli Stowers is back though. He's a heck of a player. But yeah, Pavia needs to take another step. Again, I feel like with that offense, what I really enjoyed about it is, week to week, it could look different. Obviously, there's always the option element to it, but I think they did that a lot less later in the year, just in part, I assume, to protect him a little bit more, and because he just wasn't as effective when he was banged up. Now, the way he plays, does he avoid getting banged up? I mean, that's a big question too. That he does not like to slide, go out of bounds. He likes to try to run over a linebacker, which is awesome and fun, but then sometimes can get him in trouble. But I just think when you execute a creative option offense like that, and then you have the passing ability that he has, he may not be an NFL quarterback, but I mean, he can make the throws. That's where it just really, you just don't find too many offenses out there. I think Navy's offense now with their quarterback it's like it's option, but they actually they do more than just every once in a while throw a deep pass, on play action, and the same with Vanderbilt. So I think the scheme is going to be fine.
615-737-1025, our phone number. We'll get back into this conversation a little bit later in the program. Coming up next, some interesting decisions about to be made in the NFL as it relates to the NFL playoffs. We'll get into that coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Hour number 2, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, brought to you by First Horizon, Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get-it-all. Live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership where the buzz is always about great service. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ian Safar here with you on this Monday morning. Corey Curtis from News 2 will be with us at 8 o'clock. We are taking your thoughts in the meantime, 615-737-1025. Joe, the NFL owners will be voting on the playoff reseeding proposal that the Lions put through this past offseason. They're also going to be voting on the tush push ban at the May meeting as well, but we'll get to that a little bit later. Let's focus in on the playoff reseeding proposal. So for those who may either have missed it or forgot it, basically what the Lions have thrown out there is to reseed the playoffs, and that, let's say, for instance, it played out in the NFC like it did last year, where you had, basically the Lions and Vikings down to that last week at 14 wins, and the winner was going to get the division in the top spot, and the loser was going to be a wild card and have to start the playoffs on the road. The Lions don't want any part of that, and the proposal they've thrown out there is that you're just seeding it by the record. And yeah, if you win your division, you're still getting in the playoffs, but you're not guaranteed a home game just because you win your division. You're seeding it by the record, and you're kind of going from there. So an 11-6 team that finishes third in their division theoretically could have a home game ahead of a team that finishes 9-8 and wins their division. So, Joe, that's going to be voted on by the owners. What do you make of that? What's the likelihood of that getting through? And do you like this proposal that the Lions have thrown out there?
I feel like I've totally been a flip-flopper on this. I don't even remember. I feel like last year when we were in the middle of this, I said I think they need to do this. And right now, I don't know. I think I'd vote no on it. I just feel like the division, the way they have the divisions, you have, obviously, you set it up, it's obviously 4 teams per division. You set it up so everybody plays a division rival at the end of the year. They've done a lot to lean in on these, these rivalry franchises. And I just feel like there should be a reward for winning your division. It's, some years and look, many years with like the AFC South, it's not the greatest division, but I still feel like there should be a reward. And here's a proposal that no one would ever propose, and we can laugh at it, but like, what if there's like a trigger in place where it's like, if there's a 4-game difference between like a second place team and a division winner, then you can trigger this. And it's like, okay, it's ridiculous to have like an 8-9 team hosting a 13-4 team, I mean, that'll never happen. You have to go one way or the other. But it's just in those extreme cases that I really like the idea. For the most part, I think I would vote no.
I love it. I do. Like, I think that this is awesome. And again, like, people will say, what's the reward for winning your division? Well, the reward for winning your division is getting in the playoffs, right? I mean, there have been times where teams that have won their division and frankly shouldn't have been in the playoffs. They're like, by the numbers, they've won their division. I think back to that Seattle team, whenever that was, 10, 12 years ago, that won. Now they end up winning a playoff game, so there is that you have to go to. But by the numbers, like, they were not one of the top 6 teams at that time. And now the playoffs have expanded to 7, obviously. But like, I think your reward is getting in the playoffs. I don't think that just because your division is not as strong as maybe another division and you win it, that means that you automatically should get a home game over someone else. Like, frankly, like, it's pretty stupid that Minnesota had to start this year on the playoffs in the road. Like, would that have changed the outcome? I have no idea. Darnold was pretty bad the last 2 weeks, so maybe it doesn't change the outcome. But frankly, like, I think it's pretty dumb that Minnesota had to start on the road after winning 14 games in the regular season.
Yeah, maybe you've talked me back into it. This is where I am on this. And I'm very interested to know where owners are, because you asked me what's the likelihood of it passing. I don't know. And I'm not sure the timing either in terms of I guess I'd like to know what Charles, what he thinks from talking to people around the league. Look, obviously to me, like, the teams in the two South divisions probably wouldn't like this. And everything's cyclical, so it's not like you can't have. I mean, that wasn't that long ago. Tampa Bay was a great team. 2 years ago, Houston had a great record, but those are I feel like those divisions often end up, producing your like mediocre record champion. That NFC East did not that long ago too. Now that's a way better division now, but that went through a real down period too, with like all the teams kind of struggling. But I'm very interested to see how they look at this. Comparing it to other pro leagues playoffs. Help me out here. So obviously the NBA is just straight seeding,
right?
And it's very simple. Hockey it's
by division. So if you win your division, you're getting, one of those two top seeds in your conference.
Yeah, and you're getting one of the wild cards, and we have our own issues with that.
Right.
Instead of just straight seeding don't like the 1 year of the college football playoff 12 team. Don't like it. Don't like the way they did the seeding. And I think they're going to go to straight seeding. And then baseball, baseball, you have the same idea, don't you? In baseball, you have the division. Yeah, I think just straight seeding probably wins a day. So I've already flip-flopped within one segment.
615-737-1025. Our phone number, 615-737-1025. What do you make of the proposal that the NFL owners will be voting on to reseed the playoffs? We'll take more of your thoughts on that coming up next. Also got some other NFL thoughts to get to as well. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game. This week's Nashville's best deal is Beach Bend Park and Splash Lagoon with a buy one, get one free admission. Beach Bend Park and Splash Lagoon, where parking, tubes, and sunscreen are always free. Get this great deal now at thegamenashville.com/deals while supplies last. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. We'll have Corey Curtis from News 2 coming up at 8 o'clock here on the program. Throwing the idea out there that the Lions have put that the NFL owners will vote on of reseeding the playoffs and just going by record. NFL division winners still get in, but you're not guaranteed a home game there. Derek from Nolansville says, what if it's the other way around and the division is really good / deep, and that's why the division winner's record is bad? Then another division winner's record is really good because they play in the division with mostly bad teams that they get to play twice. This from Derek from Nolansville on the text line. Joe, your thoughts?
Yeah, I hear what he's saying. I mean, look, whatever we just saw last year, the current system it was a big enough disparity and just ridiculous that look, the Lions and the Vikings in the regular season were two of the three best teams in the conference, and they're in the same division. It's going to happen again. But yeah, if you go to this system and you flip it around, there's going to be times, when it's the same sort of idea. And I think the scenario he laid out there where a division winner could be worthy, but by circumstance still get screwed out of a home game. So it's going to be really interesting to me.
Yep.
I think I'm back off. Yeah, I say no. Sorry.
Rexrode's going all over the place with this vote. All right, Joe, so you brought this up briefly on the show last week with Charles, but let's bring it up again. So Matt Barrows of The Athletic put this out there, calling it the 18-16 compromise, with the NFL, we think, inevitably eventually getting to 18 games. So for those who have no idea what we're talking about, kind of quickly summarize the 18-16 plan that Matt Barrows has put out there into whether or not that's going to be something the NFL could actually consider moving forward.
Yeah. Well, we didn't talk about, I think, the only way it can work. And I heard DVD talking about this when Willie wasn't, accurately calling me a loudmouth idiot. They were very down on it. D-Mace was very down on it, but I think it's very simple. And I think this is exactly I think this would work totally fine because people get hurt. You already have injuries. You have to be strategic. I think the strategy of this would be fascinating. But what you have to do is quarterbacks, kicker, punter, long snapper, those positions are exempt. And I know that the quarterback isn't the star player for every single team. But when it comes to like fans and like, oh my God, we got tickets for my kid in his 9th birthday, and this is the game that the Titans are sitting Cam Ward. Are you kidding me? Well, you exempt quarterbacks from it, and so those those specialists and quarterbacks play every game. Everybody else has to miss 2. And again, you go through a NFL season. First of all, you're going to have a lot of players who do anyway. And sure, there's the star receiver, the star running back, the star linebacker. I mean, there are going to be some games with players missing by this rule, and I'm sure some fans will gripe about it. But I just think that circumstances already bring it to that a lot. I think the strategy element of it is fascinating. And look, it's just, I'm sorry, but it's just insane to me. I mean, I shouldn't be insane because these owners are the greediest bunch of mother farters in the world, okay? But like, you already have the greatest game by far in the country. You are printing money. The asset value of all your franchises are skyrocketing, and you have to get to 18 games. So everybody knew 17 was just the next step. They were never going to stay 17 forever, right? It's weird. 9 home games one year and 8 the next. It was never going to be a long-term thing. So in this time of player safety, going to 18 games, it really is insane, but it's happening. So I think this is, to me, if I'm an owner, I don't love this, but if I know the quarterback doesn't have to do this, then I feel a lot better about it. And look, single season records in the NFL, we go back to like a 16, obviously not with quarterbacks, but quarterback records are so like blown out now anyway compared to the old days, right? But single season records, could be compared. I just think it makes sense. And I just look, like, these players are totally like the NFLPA is putting all this stuff out about how they're anti, well, then you can't let it get to the 17th game. You're going to buckle, you're going to lose, you're going to get more revenue for it. But I think this plan would at least remind everyone that, yes, player safety actually does matter to some people.
I think this is so dumb. I really do. I just think I appreciate like the thought process behind it and like trying to come up with a creative solution, but like this feels like almost like some game show. Like, are we playing football or we're not playing football? Like, I don't love the idea of, hey, we're playing 18 games. The quarterback, the kicker, the long snapper are exempt, but everybody else has to sit out at least 2 games, and you can strategize when that's going to be. So like that, I mean, it would be interesting from a strategy standpoint of like, are you sitting your entire offensive line at the same time for a couple of games? Or are you like breaking it down throughout the season? Like, because to me, if you're like, it brings up, I think in this piece talks about sitting the offensive line. Yeah, well, I'm not playing my quarterback if I'm sitting the offensive line. I can tell you that. Quarterback is not going to be playing if I'm sitting the offensive line. So there's a lot that I think is kind of dumb about this, but I do appreciate the thought of kind of the creative mind that is put to this. I have not thought about this at all prior to this article coming out here. I do think we're getting to 18 games. And look, a lot of this is the players' fault, right? Like they keep giving in on stuff, and they've been so strong in saying that they don't want an 18th game. They don't want an 18th game. And they said that about the 17th game. And then, Joe, they immediately gave in on the 17th game because the money was coming in. So, like, the players have kind of created this for themselves when it comes to the negotiations.
Yeah, look, I don't disagree. I mean, but like when it comes down to it, they're just right now they're not winning these big arguments.
No.
So I just have a problem with the whole. I mean, like, do these people? I as an NFL fan, this is who people know nobody ever listens to. And look, a lot of the reaction to the text line is along your line. Someone said it's a barf throw up. Or the barf throw up is respectfully. Chad says dog throw up. Kevin says we're getting close to golden at bat. I get it. So, fans would not like this, but also as an NFL fan, I like 16 games. I understand the whole idea, like why you complain about more football, but like I think you are starting to get to diminishing returns possibility here. It's already such an incredible high rate of injury in this league. I like 16 games. I like comparing the stats on 16 games. I like the calendar. Like, I don't want more. I think it's ridiculous. And so it still starts with the greed of all these owners. And it's like, just because like the preseason games have become meaningless now, because like no coaches are going to play anybody. And so if we have to cut that inventory, well, Ben, we have to add it to the actual games. I just think it's insanity when in the last 20 years we've learned what we've learned about head injuries. But I mean, I get your take on this because I think most people would feel that way, that it's just stupid. But I would never sit my whole offense. I'd be like, okay, left guard this week, we sneak this guy, and then over here. I mean, the week where if you have a great left tackle, that's where it's like, ooh, boy.
Yeah, I
know. But like, yeah, I do kind of like, I'm fascinated by the weekly sort of like, and then when do you have to declare who you're sitting? I don't know. I think it's kind of fun. It's just like relegation. Like, it'll never happen, but I think it'd be awesome if we had relegation.
Well, beyond the fan part of this and like their reaction to it, here's why I don't think this will ever happen. And this is brought up in the article, and I think it's a good point. The TV networks want no part of this. Like they want no part of, oh, you guys are just sitting players out. I mean, maybe you could mitigate that a little bit with the quarterbacks not being a part of it. But if I'm a TV network, so I'm like, no, I really like the idea of, having Justin Jefferson out there and available to play in the games that I'm paying to broadcast. So thanks. Let's put him out there. And also, like, if you're the players, right? Like if you're looking for bigger contracts, right? I mean, yes, you can get hurt in an 18-game schedule. You can also put up massive numbers in an 18-game schedule that may end up getting you paid more. So those are two reasons why I don't think this will actually happen.
I don't either. But it was a nice thought.
It was very creative. Like I kind of dig the creativity here. I'm looking through the comments on the article. There are some people that actually like it.
Do they? Oh,
yeah.
Good. Okay. Well, yeah, it's people on my side. Just the quarterback, but But you're right, like a Justin Jefferson. Now, when do you do that? You do that for like if you play a crappy team and you have like a noon game on CBS. You know,
you're a Titans fan. You're like,
God,
the Titans haven't played a good receiver all year. What's going on out there? Nobody's playing their receivers against the Titans.
If you're a Titans fan, it's like, we might get some breaks here, play some diminished teams, have a better record. See, you know, the crappy teams in the league could have a little more hope.
615-737-1025. Joseph, that's going to do it for you today on the program. We wish you luck in your pursuit to get some antibiotics in you and take care of this little tick problem we got.
Thanks. I'll report back tomorrow from Broadway.
Let's see how it goes. 615-737-1025. Ian and I got you covered the rest of the show. We got Corey Curtis from News 2 coming up at 8 o'clock. We'll continue to take some of your reaction to the 18-16 plan that Rexrode has thrown out there, plus get into the Final Four of the NHL and the NBA as well. All that coming up. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, brought to you by First Horizon, Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get it all. Robby Stanley alongside Ian Safar. Rexrode out the rest of the program.
Yeah, he is.
Dealing with a tick bite, hoping that it's not Lyme disease. In all seriousness, we do wish Joe the best as he goes to the urgent care, try to get this figured out. Lyme disease does not sound fun, so we're hoping that this is just a slight overreaction on the part of Joe Rexrode, Ian.
Let's hope so. And the travel situation this week is not making anything easier for him.
It is not.
He is headed to New York for, I believe that's the athletic kind of conference or something like that.
Yeah.
For his other gig. And the combination of that and the weekend and the flights and the real IDs, it's setting up for and some graduations, I think, thrown in there.
It could be.
I think it's quite the doozy setup for old Rexrode this week.
Could be quite a story that we get tomorrow morning at 6 a.m.
Some excellent content for the program. It might be, yeah.
Yep. We'll take your best wishes, your well wishes for Rexrode on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com. Got a lot of different thoughts on ticks today on the text line. That is one thing that I can confirm.
It is tick season. There's no doubt about that. And so, head on a swivel, as our friend Terry Crisp likes to say.
Yep. No doubt about that. So, Ian, we were just talking about this 18-16 plan that was thrown out there by the Athletic. The majority of the text line is like, yeah, thanks, but no thanks when it comes to this. I kind of hate it. I appreciate the creativity of thought.
In theory, I suppose it works, but if you try and play it out, it doesn't really hold water very well.
Well, one thing that's also interesting, and we had somebody on the YouTube chat bring this up. I brought up the TV part of this. Like, if you're the TV networks, I want no part of paying for this product. And then
so-and-so's out.
By the way, your game is going to be the game that Justin Jefferson doesn't play or Myles Garrett doesn't play or whoever it is.
Yep. That won't go well.
I don't think that'll go over very well. And that's ultimately why this is probably not going to happen. But also, like somebody on YouTube pointed out, like, what about the fantasy football part of this? So, like, you draft this guy in fantasy football.
Yeah. If you
and all of a sudden it's like, well, you can't play. Or you take an over-under on somebody before the season. It's like, well, he's not playing in this game. So, there's a lot that's complicated to it.
Yeah.
Which is why I do not think that this will happen. So
I don't think so.
Very rarely do we have a topic where people are like, universally opposed to something. Pretty universal.
This is
on
the
text line. It's up there.
This one's up there.
It's up there. Ian, we brought it up earlier. The Final Four in the NHL and the NBA is set. You've got Dallas and Edmonton on the hockey side of things in the Western Conference.
Should be a good one.
Got Florida and Carolina on the Eastern side of things.
We'll see about that.
For the NHL. Let's start there because Florida has made it to the Cup final 2 years in a row. They won last year.
Looking good.
They're on a heck of a run right now. Carolina, I love their coach in Rod Brindamore. Like, he's done obviously a great job. They're kind of boring.
Can't get over the hump either.
Yeah, and they can't get over the hump. And I don't think they're going to win this series, but we'll see. They're kind of boring a little bit. Like they
lack a little
suppress
star
you. They don't have
power.
like star power. It's not like you look at all the rest of these teams, and they don't really have those guys. Now, they've got a lot of really good players, and that's why they've been as successful as they've been. They're a really good defensive team. They suppress shots really well. Like, Aho is a great player, but, they don't have McDavid. They don't have Rantanen.
They had Rantanen, and they ended up not wanting to keep him, which is strange, interesting strategy there. If they just went for the whole not keep the star, bring in some younger players. Maybe the owner's cheap. I don't know.
Could be. And it would be interesting too. Like it still could be Dallas, Carolina in the final, and you'd have Rantanen going up against another former team at that point. But I'm looking at it. Here's my original thought on it. Edmonton, I think at some point has to break through, but I don't think it's going to be this year. Like I think Rantanen takes Dallas over the top. I think it's going to be Dallas and Florida in the Cup final. And frankly, I would sign up for that. I think that would be awesome.
That would be good.
That is what I'm pulling for is Dallas and Florida in the Cup final.
Florida is playing just an outstanding team game right now. And I don't know, how much they look like this in the regular season. I didn't watch a whole lot of Eastern Conference hockey this year during the regular season, but in the playoffs, they still look like they have that playoff chemistry. They're working as a whole 5-man unit. You have Seth Jones kind of stepping up, looking almost like a number one defenseman. Bobrovsky continues his very good play in the playoffs. So they are rolling right now. And the Brad Marchand deal seems to be working out great.
Yeah, no, it's been fun to watch. And again, we talked about it to start the show. Like, just anytime you watch Toronto collapse, it's very entertaining. Like, that place goes from 0 to 60 unbelievably quickly. On the NBA side of things, a different Final Four this year. You've got Oklahoma City and Minnesota in the West, and then the Pacers. And is it fair to call them your beloved New York Knicks? That's what we're going to call them. Ian's beloved New York Knicks.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. They used to very much be my beloved Knicks, but, as the years go, I've been here since 97 now in Middle Tennessee. So as the years go on and you lose kind of, I wouldn't say they're as beloved as they were, but I used to love me some Knicks back in the day, yeah.
And we're going to have Kuharski in later this week, who I'm sure now is all in on the Knicks that they've made it to the Eastern Conference Final. So you two can join forces.
Okay.
And get after
we'll see how that goes.
Yeah. Looking forward to that. Although, like, I will say it is kind of nice in the NBA to have some new blood in there. Like, I'm sure if you gave like the NBA offices some truth serum, they're probably not overly thrilled that it's Oklahoma City, Minnesota, Indiana that have ended up here. Now, the Knicks, I'm sure they're really excited about, right? So the Knicks getting to this point, they're thrilled about. But, like, I think there's a very good chance that it could end up being Oklahoma City and Indiana in the final, and we'll see. We'll see if the Knicks can beat Indiana. But
I mean, the series in the 90s between those two were usually pretty entertaining. Yeah. It was a different brand,
right?
It was physical. You had the Davis brothers and like Reggie Miller and all that kind of stuff, and they were physical. Much more of a big man game, but. I mean, between Halliburton, I don't know. I kind of think the Pacers might win, but
yeah, like, it's been
the way they've been playing. I don't know if the Knicks will have enough scoring power. Some of them guys have been playing decent at home, but I don't know. I would probably lean the Pacers as a favorite early on if I just had to guess. But
I think Oklahoma City is the team to beat.
The
whole thing.
I mean, Denver got out to a good start yesterday. But OKC turned it on, and all of a sudden I turned it on. It was like I saw Denver was winning first quarter pretty well. I was like, okay, this is looking good for my pick and weekend winners. Then all of a sudden I turned it back on, and OKC was up by like 20. I was like, what happened?
Yeah, man, they're good. And the thing is, they're really young, and they're going to be good for a while. That Oklahoma City team, it's
so they
fun.
Might be. Yeah, I haven't watched a whole lot of them, during the regular season, but they look like they could be pretty good.
Terry on the text line says it's always fun to watch the Leafs collapse like they do when they flood Broadway when they play the Preds. Broadway is undefeated against Leafs fans. Usually a lot of Leafs fans show up when they come here for their one visit per year. So we'll see.
Marner did not look happy on the ice. He was yelling at I think he used a curse word there.
Oh yeah.
Maybe a fart word.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was. Come on, guys, wake up. It did not work.
And I think the Mitch Marner era in Toronto is now over with him being gone in free agency. I think he's gonna get paid a ton of money this offseason. Frankly, I think Chicago would probably be a pretty good spot for him. We'll see if they end up going like big game hunting, but they need somebody that can play with Bedard. So we'll see if they end up going that route. Predators fans, I don't think that they're going to get involved in the Mitch Marner sweepstakes, nor do I think they should get involved in the Mitch Marner sweepstakes. But interesting stuff last night in the playoffs, the Final Four set in both the NHL and the NBA. We'll have the Rob Rant coming up next. Corey Curtis from News 2 will be with us coming up at 8 o'clock. All that ahead. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Don't make me angry.
Sometimes you have to tell someone to pound sand.
You wouldn't like me when I'm angry.
This is the Rob Rant. Now on Robby and Rexrode.
I think that would revolutionize our show if we went mullet skullet.
Get 2 venti of the pipe with 2 shots in them. So black eye in both. That's what I come in with. That's how I start the day. So
Dan Campbell the other day with the cup of coffee. And he's such a great character. But he's like I go to Starbucks, I get a venti, grab the pipe. So I'm doing that.
Excuse me. Hope that's not the Lyme disease.
That is the rod I have up my tush.
Gout is mental. No, it is not mental.
we're going to get up. And on the way up, we're going to bite a kneecap off.
It is that time of the day. Time for the Rob Rant here on Robby and Rexrode. You can check it out every morning here on the show, either the Rex Rant or the Rob Rant. Pretty soon we're going to Ian mad enough to start ranting as well.
Yeah, I'll have to come up with something, yeah.
See if we can do that. We'll have Corey Curtis with us at 8 o'clock here on the program. So, Ian, there's a couple things related to the Brock Purdy contract over the weekend and some of the reaction to it that kind of bothered me. So, if you missed it, Brock Purdy signed a 5-year, $265 million contract extension with San Francisco over the weekend. Not a huge surprise. Like, they had been working and trying to hammer out this contract for a while. It felt like a matter of time before it gets done. And frankly, like, I looked at it and I said, yeah, okay, that makes about sense. You know, if you break it down, I think he's got $181 million in guarantees, and he comes in, I think it's 7th at the position when you just break it down by annual average value.
Like 53, I think
he's at $53 million per year. So that's behind Dak, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Jordan Love, Trevor Lawrence, and Tua. So he's coming in at 7th there. If you break it down by the $180 million in guarantees, he's 8th. And fully guaranteed at signing, this according to CBS Sports, he would rank 12th. So he's kind of right there in that, 8 to 12 range. And frankly, like, that's about where I thought he would come in when his contract is up at that point. And nobody's going to confuse Brock Purdy for Patrick Mahomes out there. But it's the same thing we talked about last season, right? Like, Jordan Love signed his deal, and it was like, wow, he's been a starting quarterback for 1 year, and he got $55 million per year. Trevor Lawrence coming in at $55 million a year. Tua signing the big deal. Like, that's just what it is right now with quarterbacks when their deals come up. So I saw some people over the weekend that were like, oh my goodness, like, that's so much money for Brock Purdy. And I'm like, I don't know what you guys expected. Like, this is exactly what it is right now for starting quarterbacks coming in. Now, is Brock Purdy going to end up being worth that? Like, is he going to go win a Super Bowl with San Francisco? I would guess probably not, because that team's getting older and they've had a really talented roster and have yet to be able to break through and actually win the Super Bowl, which kind of leads me to my second point. Like, I saw a lot of this over the weekend, and I get it. And let me just say for the record that I think Kyle Shanahan's a really good coach. Like, Kyle Shanahan is certainly in my top 10, probably top 7 of NFL head coaches in the league.
Seems to have that offensive system down pretty good.
But the way that people talk about him sometime, I'm like, don't you actually have to win a championship at some point to be talked about this way? Because you could make the argument, while I agree with everyone that says he's a great coach. And you're right. Like, the offensive system that he puts in place, they've been able to do a lot with it. But you can also make the argument that he has had probably the most talented roster in the league
up there
over the course of the last 5 years, depending on which year you want to pick. But like, as a whole, over the last 5-6 years, they've had probably throughout the totality of that, the most talented roster.
I got some good players
in the league, and they haven't won the Super Bowl. So I know they've been to 2 and they've lost them to Mahomes. So there's no shame in losing a Super Bowl to Patrick Mahomes. But I know the knock on Andy Reid. Andy Reid did a whole lot of winning before he won the Super Bowl. And there was that, Andy Reid can't get it done in the big games. Andy Reid can't win the big one. And then he gets to Kansas City and he does it. And I just feel like I don't really hear that a lot with Kyle Shanahan. It's always like, well, Kyle Shanahan's a super genius. And Kyle Shanahan is like what every head coach in the NFL wants to be. And again, I think he's a good coach. But I think some people act like Shanahan has won 4 Super Bowls at this point, and he's not yet. So I just heard a bunch of this over the weekend, like, oh, Kyle Shanahan can walk on water out there. And I'm like, okay, well, Kyle Shanahan has also been the offensive coordinator of probably the biggest blown Super Bowl in
he
history.
Probably played a role in that at some point too.
At some point, he's probably got to prove that he can step up and get it done when it matters the most. So again, would I take Kyle Shanahan as head coach of the Titans right now? Yeah, I would. Absolutely. But some of the conversation with him, I think, gets a little bit overblown for somebody who has not actually won a championship yet.
I think that's fair. I mean, all these other guys we talk about have at least won, a championship, and to be in that tier, we almost put Shanahan in that tier of McVay and Reed and those kind of guys, even though they have actually proven more, probably with more players, and have won more. So I don't know. That's a good point. I don't know. Maybe it is because of the whole father-son thing.
Yeah.
And just because of his name is Shanahan and his dad. And so maybe it has a little extra allure to that.
Well, don't get me wrong. He's a good coach. Like, I'm not trying to sit here and act like Kyle Shanahan's not a good coach, because he clearly is. But I just think the way that people talk about him sometimes, they don't talk about John Harbaugh that way. And John Harbaugh has won a Super Bowl, right? Yeah. And John Harbaugh's teams are
he's probably a better
consistently
coach than Shanahan,
excellent. Like, somebody on the text line brought up Mike Tomlin. Like, Mike Tomlin, it's not gone very well for Pittsburgh recently in terms of playoff success. Mike Tomlin has won a Super Bowl, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's
and he makes the playoffs pretty much every year.
Right.
Shanahan did not last year. They did not have a good season.
And that's it. And I heard them talking about that part of it this morning on Unsportsmanlike. Like, Shanahan is a really good coach, and obviously, his offensive scheme that he puts together, they run some stuff there that's really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
But they've also had some years where they've been bad, and some of it's injury related. I get that, and they've never really had. They drafted Trey Lance to be that quarterback. They got to a Super Bowl with Jimmy Garoppolo.
That was a terrible decision,
right?
The Lance thing.
Yeah, the Lance thing was bad, and they got bailed out of that by finding Purdy where they found him, right?
Yep.
Otherwise, they'd be up a creek right now as it relates to the quarterback part of this. I sometimes the way that people talk about Kyle Shanahan, you would think that he's won 3 Super Bowls at this point.
And I do wonder
amazing to me.
How much say he has in the personnel. It sounds like he has final say from stuff that I've heard reported on. I believe John McClain might have said that Shanahan has final say over there in 49ers. So if he has final say, how much is he, are his imprints on the roster? And what does that mean for the power there, and how that whole dynamic has gone? How much is he going to have control over the roster and everything? And if he's not going to win a Super Bowl, what's the deal with that?
Well, and we're going to see now, because I do think, they've lost Debo, so Debo's gone to Washington.
Their window is shrinking and closing quickly.
I agree. Now, you look at their schedule. I think by the numbers, they've got the easiest schedule in the NFL this year. Now, again, it's one thing to have that on paper. We'll see how it goes heading into the actual season. But San Francisco has the easiest schedule by the numbers in the league this year. But Christian McCaffrey's a year older, George Kittle's a year older, Brandon Ayuk's coming off a torn ACL.
The tackle,
it does,
Trent Williams.
Yeah, he's approaching 40. it does feel like their window
not going to be able to go forever.
Been missed a little bit. So we'll see. Who knows? Maybe this will be the year that San Francisco breaks through and
it could be
wins the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
I kind of have my doubts.
That will prove them right about the contract, I suppose.
615. Yep, 615-737-1025. Our phone number 615-737-1025. Corey Curtis from News 2 will be with us. Coming up next, we'll get his thoughts on all things Tennessee Titans. This is Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Final hour, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, brought to you by First Horizon, Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get it all. Robbie Stanley alongside Ian Safar, Joe Rexrode, here for the first half of the show today. I had to go to the urgent care to get a tick bite checked out. So we'll get an update from Rexrode on that tomorrow morning on the program. Let's head back to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. And welcome in our friend Corey Curtis to the program from News 2, brought to you by Tennessee Men's Clinic. Corey, good morning. How are you?
Sounds like I'm the new co-host of Robby and Corey pretty soon.
Sounds like it. We're hoping that Rexrode's dealing with a slight case of overreaction here heading to the clinic, but you never know. I mean, tick bites, as we've learned today on the show, Corey, a lot of experts on ticks on the text line. They could be quite serious, as we know.
Yeah, I know Chris Mortensen, the late Chris Mortensen, had a serious case of, I think it was Lyme disease when he got bit.
Yep. So we're hoping against that as Rexrode gets that figured out today. So, Corey, I want to start with you on this, and I'm glad our buddy Ian Safar brought this up with me because I almost forgot about it, which is kind of amazing given how much we talked about this on Friday. But what did you make of the Caleb Williams story that came out with Seth Wickersham's book coming out? Caleb Williams' dad basically talking with him about how they tried to almost circumvent the draft process so he wouldn't end up with the Chicago Bears. Ultimately, obviously, he did, and now Ben Johnson's in. So it's not the same coaching staff that he's dealing with this year. But what did you make of all that about Caleb Williams, which I'm sure went over very well in Chicago over the weekend?
You know, a great man once had some of the wisest words ever said, and that is, don't press send. Don't press it. You can think it, you can laugh about it, you can chuckle about it, you can roll it over in your head, you can type it, but don't press send. That was Herm Edwards. And we have gotten to a point in our society where people think that it's okay to just say whatever you want because you feel that way. And, you are allowed to do that. But if you don't think there are ramifications for that, you're an idiot. And look, if Caleb Williams comes out and throws for 4,000 yards, the Bears win 10 games, no one's going to care.
Right.
But the moment they lose 38-31 or 38-13 to the Packers and he throws 4 interceptions, people are going to care. Why give people ammunition? Why? It does not make – look, if you moved on from that team and then wanted to bag them, that's fine. But why bag them while you are still there? And by the way, you haven't proved a darn thing.
Right.
I mean, as a parent, and you're a parent now too, so you will get there. But as a parent, I can't even fathom doing that to my child, putting them in that position. As a parent, your job is to empower your child and put them in the best possible position to succeed. And I can hear it now. Well, I was trying to put my child in the best position to succeed by not going to Chicago. Okay, fine, if that was your plan. But you don't have to tell everybody about it.
That's the amazing part to me. Like, look, there's plenty of pressure on him anyway. I mean, you're talking about a market that is quarterback starved, as you know.
Yep.
You're a number 1 overall pick. And there's so much pressure that comes along with that anyway. But now this is just like what this does, Corey, is at the first sign of him maybe not playing well, or if he has a couple of bad games, like the fans look at this and they say, well, screw this guy. This guy didn't want to be here anyway. And now he's not out there playing well. Like it's just a terrible PR look for him.
It reeks of Anakin Skywalker. You were the chosen one.
Nice.
And he's laying there with all his limbs cut off on fire.
Spoiler alert.
Professing his hatred for the people who embraced him. So, Caleb Williams, Chicago's new Darth Vader.
Very nice. I like the way you got that in there. I'm going to ask you our question of the day. So, okay. I'm basing this purely off of FanDuel Sportsbook win totals. They've got the Titans at 5.5.
5.5, yeah.
They got Tennessee at 8.5 in college football this year. Vanderbilt's at 4.5. And if you look at their schedule, like they've got it's a heck of a SEC schedule they got. Which team will have the best season relative to expectations in your mind this fall?
Oh, wow. Because I think it's really close. I think all those numbers are pretty spot on. The thing about both Tennessees is we don't know what they're going to get at the quarterback position. And that's what makes it so hard. So Vanderbilt's the only one with quarterback play that we know what's going to be there. The only thing is like, are you going to sneak up on Alabama again? I don't think so. I think I don't know if they play Alabama again, but
they do on the road.
You're not going to sneak up on Alabama again. So it's going to be really difficult. I guess it's my way of saying I guess you're asking me to pick one. I would say the Titans because they have more games to do it with.
Yep. Yeah.
I mean, they have 17 games.
And I think also with the Titans, one of the wild cards is Cam Ward, right? Like if Cam Ward's great immediately, like that could really change what your team can be there. Like, you're right. We know what Vanderbilt has in Pavia, and he's a really good player. I still look at Vanderbilt and I look at their schedule, and it's not just Alabama. Like they're on the road at Alabama, South Carolina, Tennessee, Texas. Like it's an unbelievable road schedule that they've got this year.
And they had a lot go right to get to 7 wins last year.
They did. And it's also like as good of a job as I think Clarkley has done to kind of turn this thing around, and the recruiting's going better and all that. All that's great. Like there's still a difference between their roster and Texas and Alabama, right? So like I think that is going to make it difficult for Vanderbilt this year with the games that they've got on the road that way. The Cam Ward part of this is what we don't know, but also I think what gives the Titans probably the most upside in that conversation.
Absolutely. And you saw, you've seen what a franchise quarterback can do in Denver and in Washington. These young guys can come in and they can make an immediate difference if they are, indeed an upgrade over what they've got. And the other thing we have to remember with the Titans is they still play in the AFC South. You don't know if Anthony Richardson is going to be at the game or under anesthesia for a full frontal tattoo. You've got Jacksonville, so you're praying you're up by 2 points with 2 minutes to go, and Trevor Lawrence has the football and finds a way to lose the game. So, look, you've got 4 infinitely winnable games there. And, even if you win 2 of them, you only got to win 4 more, from that point to get to 6. We've been talking about the win totals a lot at work, and at 5.5, I would take the over for the Titans. At 6.5, I would not take the bet. And certainly at 7.5, I would flock to the under.
Right. So it shows you it's about where it probably needs to be then.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Tennessee with where they're at quarterback, it would be easier to take the under than the over.
I would agree with that. So there's also a proposal coming up in the NFL that the NFL owners are going to be voting on this week that the Lions threw out there. And we've talked to you about the general idea of this before, but now that there's about to be a vote on it, your thoughts on the potential reseeding of the NFL playoffs, where they basically just go by record. And if you win your division, you're in the playoffs. So there's your reward, but you're not necessarily guaranteed a home game. What do you make of that?
Yeah, because it was that whole thing with the Vikings.
Right.
And so if you don't win your division, you just get really, really punished. And, what did we say? Seattle at 7-9 host a playoff game?
We did.
Yeah. And I think we've seen the Titans at 9-7, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Or AFC South teams. Yeah. I think on first glance, I'm going to support it because I think you need to be rewarded for being good and for winning games. And I don't think you should be punished for who's in your division. And if you can win your division at 9-7, 10-6, your division is that bad, you should be winning more games than that. So I will on first glance go with that. of every division winner gets in, but then stacking the order on record. Don't they reseed after the first round, right?
Right.
Yeah. So this would just be seeding on the first round. Yeah, I think so.
I'm with it.
Because you get in, you're in with a bad record if you win. I mean, you go 7-9 and you win your division, you're in.
Right. Like it's not like you don't get in the playoffs. I just like the idea that Minnesota won 14 games last year and had to start the playoffs on the road. I think is just dumb. I think that's got to be addressed.
It's an extreme case. But it brings up the hypocrisy of it. And sometimes it takes that. It takes the extreme to bring about change. And so yeah. And I would, obviously, if you're in the AFC South, you're probably voting against that right now. But I think. What percentage does it have to be unanimous, or does it have to be like 3/4? I
think it's 3/4. I'll have to double check on that. It does not have to be unanimous, but I think it does have to be 3/4. So I will.
I think I would think that's going to pass.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see how that vote goes and what that like. I think that one's got a better chance of passing than the tush push vote at that point. So we'll see. What happens
75%. So they'll need 24 of 32.
24 of 32. So there you go. So I think they could get there on that one. Corey, the first time we've had you on since the schedule has come out, which again continues to just fascinate me. People's love of the schedule release day in the NFL, but it's out. So you're starting with Denver and LA. We could go through the whole schedule. I'm kind of really focused on the start of this thing, the first 4 for the Titans, to see kind of what the start could be. And pretty difficult on paper, right? Like at Denver, the Rams coming into town. There's the Colts, who are not difficult. And then at Houston. So you're talking about 3 playoff teams there to start in your first 4 games. What do you make of that, and how big a challenge is that going to be for Cam Ward to get acclimated to the NFL?
Well, I mean, the first 2 weeks are a massive challenge. Massive challenge. The NFL absolutely did Cam Ward and the Titans, neither one of them, any favors whatsoever. Because, in Denver – you're going to play the team that led the league in sacks last year with 63 against your new offensive line, which you think is better. It should be better, but will be playing its first game. And you're playing in altitude. And so there's the challenge for the offensive line there, and then there's the challenge for Cam Ward there. So it's a massive challenge week 1. And, what do we know about the Rams? They're well coached. I mean, it's just that simple. Yep. They are really well coached. And so that is going to be a very, very difficult game. So I think as a Titans fan, you have to expect to be 0-2 and not freak out about it. You won 3 games last year. All right. You can't have this expectation that, we're going to go up to Denver and win because, we added, Jimmy Jones. Yay. No, I mean, they were a playoff team last year. You weren't. Okay. So, and you're going to their place. So those are going to be 2 tough games. And again, I know fans get sick of me saying this, and it's the sportscaster probably in me, but I'm focused more on how the team is playing rather than what the win-loss record is. Last year, the way they played certainly reflected the record.
Oh yeah,
it was tough. It was a tough watch. But if they go both places and compete, if they go to Denver and they compete, and if they come home against the Rams, remember Malarkey's second year, it was the year the Rams went to the Super Bowl. They came to town and they beat the Titans, and the Titans, I think, fell to 7-4 that week. But it was a really good football game. And I just remember going, they lost that game, but I don't really care because that was a really good team and they played really well that day. And that's what I'm talking about. If you go to Denver and you lose 27-23 and Cam Ward throws for 280 and 3 scores, you're probably going to feel pretty good about it.
Yeah, I would say so.
So I think you just have to have. I think for the next couple of years, and I know nobody wants to hear that. You have to have your sights set on development and progression. You'd like to win some games, but you also have to be realistic about who you're playing, where you're playing them, and what exactly happened and why you got beat if you did.
Corey Curtis joins us every Monday morning at 8 o'clock here on the program. Corey, thank you, sir. Appreciate you taking time to be with us this morning.
I'm tick-free and available.
That's good. I hope you remain tick-free.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Now, Rexer got to talking about that earlier, and I started like look around on my legs. I'm like, I've got them. I don't have any, do I? I think I'm good.
Do you have a ring? Was there a ring around the bite?
He seems to think that there actually may be a ring around the bite.
Well, then he definitely needs to get checked out. All kidding aside.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Corey, thank you, sir.
Yep. All right. Bye.
Corey Curtis from News 2, brought to you by Tennessee Men's Clinic, joins us every Monday morning at 8 o'clock. Taking your thoughts on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. We'll react to what Corey had to say, get back into our question of the day. Coming up next, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Taking your thoughts on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. Got some tickets to give away. Tickets to Penn and Teller coming up at the Ryman Auditorium on Wednesday, June 11th. Be caller number 3, 615-737-1025. Caller 3 will win a pair of tickets to Penn and Teller at the Ryman Auditorium coming up on Wednesday, June the 11th. Throwing out our question of the day: which team, relative to expectations, will have the best season? Will it be the Titans, the Vols, or Vanderbilt? The win totals for each team, according to the FanDuel Sportsbook. Titans are at 5.5, so the over-under is at 5.5 for the Titans. For Vanderbilt, it is 4.5, and for the Vols, it's 8.5. So the Vols dropped a full win in the Vegas odds after Nico Iamaleava goes to UCLA. So throwing that out there, based on the expectations for each team, which team will have the best year relative to expectations? Titans, Vols, or Vanderbilt? A lot of votes for the Titans and Vanderbilt so far on the show. Not too many for Tennessee. The Vanderbilt schedule part of this is interesting because, as Corey Curtis brought up in the last segment, Vanderbilt is the one that you feel good about at quarterback. You're hopeful with Cam Ward as the number 1 overall pick that he's going to step in with the Titans and play really well. You're hopeful that either Jake Merklinger at Tennessee or Joey Aguilar coming in and being the quarterback, the transfer from App State and then UCLA, will come in and give you a good play at the quarterback position. I think you feel good that Diego Pavia is going to give you good quarterback play if you're Vanderbilt. So he's the one guy, based on what he's done to this point, that you feel pretty good about in their situation right now. I brought it up earlier, though, like the schedule for Vanderbilt. I think people see the season Vanderbilt had last year. They end up winning 7 games with a bowl game in there. And you look at their over-under win total, and you're like, 4.5. Like 4.5 seems pretty low for what they did last year. And then you open up their schedule, and these are the road games for Vanderbilt this year. Just keep this in mind. At Virginia Tech, at South Carolina, at Alabama, at Texas, and at Tennessee. They got 5 road games this year. Those are your 5. At Virginia Tech, at South Carolina, at Alabama, at Texas, at Tennessee. Now, that's a gauntlet on the road. And look, it's college football. Weird things happen. We saw it last year. Like the likelihood is one of those teams probably won't be as good as we think. And look, Virginia Tech not on the same level as Texas and Alabama and Tennessee. So I understand that, but it's still a challenging environment, a challenging place to go into. And then you look at some of their home games, like you got LSU at home, you got Auburn at home, you've got Kentucky at home. Like there are definitely some winnable games that Vanderbilt's got on the schedule, but those road games are just an absolute gauntlet that they're going to have to go through. So can you find a way, if you're Vanderbilt, to get back to 6 wins in a bowl game? They would be my pick, Ian.
Yeah.
But I think, as we talked about with Corey in the last segment, the Titans are probably the one that has the most upside in this, based on, number 1, the amount of games that they play, and number 2, the uncertainty of what exactly Cam Ward is going to be at the quarterback position.
No doubt. I do wonder, Missouri, what kind of drop-off do they have?
Yep.
Auburn, are they any better? Kentucky, they didn't have a great year last year.
Kentucky might be bad.
So, those teams aren't necessarily going to be very good. Utah State, Georgia State, I mean, that's 5 right there. So, I don't know. Maybe Vandy could squeeze one out here, take the over. I could see it. Tennessee's schedule doesn't look overly difficult this year.
The one daunting game for Tennessee is Georgia.
Yeah.
And, they've not had any success with Georgia
but Mississippi
recently.
State, I've heard, is terrible this year.
Yep.
UAB, you got ETSU in there. Kentucky's not going to be that good. Arkansas, what are they this year? New Mexico State, you throw them in there. Florida at the end of the season is always kind of weird to see. But
you got Oklahoma at home if you're Tennessee.
So Syracuse, I don't know. Maybe that'll be a fun opening game.
Yeah, it could be. Like Tennessee, their roster is still really good, right? Like they've got a very good roster. Now, do they have an elite roster? No. They don't. Like they're not Georgia, they're not Ohio State, as we discovered in the playoff game, right? Like their roster's not that. But I mean, frankly, the quarterback play that they got last year is not that difficult to replicate, right? Like Nico was good.
Underwhelming.
He was not what they expected or hoped that he would be. So could you replicate that this year? I just have more questions about what's around the quarterback this year. Like, is the offensive line going to be any good at all?
Yeah, they did have some weird people transfer out. Well, I shouldn't say weird, but maybe unexpected transfers this year.
Like Dylan Sampson, a great player for them last year. And look, Josh Heupel's offensive teams have been able to run the ball really regardless of who the running back has been. So maybe that's just what it is. Like maybe it's as simple as,
the scheme,
the scheme, and it doesn't matter who they put back there. They're going to run for 2,000 yards, right? Yeah. Like it could just be that. So maybe that's what it is for Tennessee this year. But like I look at receiver, Mike Matthews could be really good, but he's not done it yet at college. Like there's a lot of unproven on Tennessee's offense. So like if everything goes well, like Tennessee, I said it, they don't have a daunting game on their schedule except Georgia. Now they get some tough ones, like Oklahoma could be tough. At Florida at the end of the year could be tough. And there's always some team on here that you maybe don't expect to be good that gives you a game. I mean, look, they lost to Arkansas last year on the road. So who's to say Arkansas couldn't march into Neyland Stadium and beat them again this year? But I do think, they're at 8.5. So if they exceed their expectations, you're talking about a team that is probably in the college football playoff conversation, which at this moment, it's hard for me to expect that.
That would be,
Tennessee.
That seems a little bit far-fetched at this point. But hey, maybe they'll, the hypo scheme will roll on and it won't matter.
So we'll throw it out there to you. Who of these teams, the local teams in the fall, will have the best season relative to expectations? The Titans, the Vols, or Vanderbilt? Your thoughts at 615-737-1025. Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063 The Game. Robby and Rexrode brought to you by First Horizon. Big bank muscle, small bank hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get it all. Live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership where the buzz is always about great service. Robbie Stanley alongside Ian Safar. Rexrode left halfway through the show today. He'll be back tomorrow. Get an update on his battle against the ticks out there.
That's right.
In all seriousness, we do wish Rexrode well. Hopefully nothing too serious going on with the ticks, but he seemed to be excited to get to the urgent care. So we're glad he got there. Taking your thoughts on the question of the day, 615-737-1025. Which team will have the best season relative to expectations? The Titans, the Vols, or Vandy? Mark from Ashland City says, hammer the Tennessee under. It's crazy to be at 8.5 wins. Also, Florida is going to whoop Tennessee this year. Lagway is different. I'm interested to see Lagway at quarterback for Florida this year, what that's going to look like. It's weird. I know this is the way it's going to start going now, and it's kind of all over the place with the schedule. But Tennessee and Florida playing November 22nd at the Swamp. Is
second to last
to
season? Game of the season, huh?
And it got pushed back last year. Obviously, normally it's been kind of the SEC opener for both teams. Last year they played, I think, in mid-October. And now you're talking about a game in the Swamp at November the 22nd. Second to last game of the year.
Maybe it won't be so hot.
Shouldn't be that hot.
Yeah.
Tennessee has not won in the Swamp since, I believe, 2003. I think 2003 is the last time they won in the Swamp. So it has been a minute since they've gone down to Florida and won. And, Billy Napier survived last year. A lot of people didn't think he would. And Lagway looked pretty good.
Yeah, they were better, I think, than most people thought. Or at least they ended up better than people thought.
So the expectation for them this year is going to be a little higher heading into the year. And we'll see what that game, where those two teams are by the time November 22nd rolls around. But Mark from Ashland City saying to hammer the under on the 8.5 wins for Tennessee. John in Nashville says, I vote Vandy. Returning quarterback, good portal pickups, solid returning folks, and Vandy expectations is always just to make it to a bowl. Nick from Franklin says, Tennessee's not beating Alabama either this year. That's a pretty daunting one. Rexrode brought this up earlier. I would agree from the standpoint of, I'm not sitting here today on May 19th saying that Tennessee's going to go to Tuscaloosa and beat Alabama, particularly with their quarterback situation. I got a lot of questions about Alabama this year, too. Who's playing quarterback for them?
Yeah,
Are they going to go?
Milroe's gone.
What
are they going to use?
Kalen DeBoer, is he the right fit for that place? Look, I think it's fair to say Kalen DeBoer probably not going to be Nick Saban, right? I think we know that heading in this. But is Kalen DeBoer the coach that is going to have them competing for national championships every year? I don't know. There's still some things that he's going to have to prove as head coach of Alabama before I'm willing to go there. So I agree. I wouldn't pick Tennessee to beat Alabama today. I do think there's a difference between Tennessee and Alabama right now at Tennessee and Georgia, with Georgia coming in week 3 here. That one might get a little rough for Tennessee.
Yeah, that could be tough. Yeah, YouTube's mad at us thinking that we're underrating Nico from last year, it appears.
It was good. I mean, would I feel better about Tennessee if they had Nico at quarterback right now based on the other two that they've got or the other three they've got in the room right now? Yeah, I would. Say what you will about Nico. Nico's upside, I still think is pretty high. I think he's got a chance to be a pretty good player and eventually maybe a good starting NFL quarterback at some point. We'll see. He's got a long way to go to get there. You can see the tools, but part of, and I've said this before, I did not think Tennessee was a college football playoff team with him heading into this year unless he elevated a lot significantly from last year. And maybe he would have. We're not going to find out at this point. But based on everything else around him and some questions on the offensive side of the ball, I think it was going to require Nico to play really, really well. Can Joey Aguilar do that? Can Jake Merklinger, if it plays out the way Rexrode thinks, and he ends up winning the starting job, can he do that? I don't know. I have more doubts about those guys. Joey Aguilar at least has played. We've seen him, but he's played at App State, and there's a difference between being the quarterback at App State and being the quarterback at Tennessee.
Moving to the power.
He turned the ball over a lot last year. How much of that was what was around him? We're going to find out. But Tennessee, honestly, if you're a Tennessee fan, I'm not saying you sign up for this right now because you always want to get yourself in the college football playoff. But frankly, if Tennessee went 9-3 this year with the schedule and with the turnover at quarterback the way it happened, it's a pretty good year for Heupel if they go 9-3 this year.
I mean, 9 wins any year is pretty solid. Yeah. I know the expectations are with the expanded playoff, you want to make the playoff every year, but I don't know how realistic that is right now, given the parity of the SEC and some of the other stuff, unless of course they expand the playoff again.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, 9 wins any year is going to be hard to complain about. I would think personally.
Yeah, I would agree. Like if they got there, I think it'd be a pretty good job by Josh Heupel this year with this team. Like the Titans are the one that I think their win total is about right. Like you going through their schedule the other day, and we did it, off the cuff, first glance, and I think I had them winning 6, and Rexrode had them winning 5, and they're over unders at 5.5. So like it's about right, I think, based on where they are with their roster. You do have 17 games. And you've got an opportunity, like if Cam Ward is good, maybe you do get to 7 or 8.
Yeah.
Or you get closer to maybe the higher side of that. Like the Titans are the one that, like I look at their roster and it's not good.
That's
and they got
problem.
a lot of holes. So even if Cam Ward is good, how much can he cover up for?
That's the biggest issue.
With what else is out there.
The quarterback should be an upgrade, even though Cam Ward is a rookie. I mean, we've said this before about positions on the Titans, but it can't be worse than last year, the quarterback play. Yeah. So even as Cam Ward as a rookie. So you would think some of the turnovers would be cut down a little bit. Maybe we went through this. If you had Cam Ward instead of Levis last year, how many more wins do you have? A couple. So that already puts you at 5 to 6.
Yep.
But the roster is still not in a good position. And the stuff around Cam Ward is kind of what's holding the team back, almost more so than the quarterback at this point. Maybe not. And once he gets on the field, maybe it'll end up being a complete disaster. But based on last year, it doesn't feel like it'll be as bad. It's just what around them is going to be enough to help elevate. I don't know.
Well, like, can you navigate through the schedule and not just get totally beaten down with the way it could go? We talked about this. The one thing that is interesting about the schedule release that we all freak out about, like we all know who they're playing. Sometimes it's about when you're playing teams rather than who you're playing. And you get to the end of it. I mean, you got Jacksonville twice, you got Cleveland, you got New Orleans. Those are your last 6 games, right? Like those are some winnable games for your last 6.
Yeah.
Problem is, like on paper right now, and I understand that the NFL schedule often doesn't play out the way we think it will on paper. But on paper, like you could be taking some lumps to get to that point. Like the Titans may not have very many wins by the time the calendar flips to December.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the end stretch doesn't look, it's not the hardest stretch ever. You get some home games in there. There's that one good stretch there where November 2nd, bye week, November 16th, November 23rd, and November 30th are all at home.
At home for over a month.
So you go 5 straight weeks without having to go travel for a road game. Maybe you can make up a little bit of ground there, but yeah, in the NFL, it's so tricky when you look at the schedule, and one injury can just really transform your schedule. Like, what happens at the end of the season or towards the end of the season and Mahomes misses the Kansas City game, right? What does that do for the schedule at the end? And all of a sudden it, opens up way more than you thought. So,
yeah. And then, also, I think there's probably going to be an adjustment period for Ward and Ridley, just because that's what Ridley's done the last couple of years, right?
That's
like
true.
It took him a while to get going.
Slow start, yeah.
With
last
Lawrence, year. And it took him a long time to get going with Rudolph and Levis last year. Now maybe that was more to do with Levis and Rudolph than him. But what would be great is like the first game you come out there, regardless if you win or not. Because I'm more with Corey. Like I'm more concerned early, especially with the way that they're playing. They got destroyed a lot last year, so let's try to avoid that. And then you can start worrying about the wins and losses after that. But if they come out and like immediately Ward and Ridley look good together, like to me, that's a really good sign for
no doubt
getting things moving along maybe a little quicker than we think earlier in the year.
I do wonder how Ridley and Ward will mesh, how that will go. I assume it'll go okay.
Yeah, they need it to go well.
I mean, they're, because he's really their only big outside playmaker right now, Ridley.
I mean, he's kind of,
and
to me, he's their only passing game threat right now. Like you're hoping
big threat.
The
for
2
sure.
rookies will grow into that.
But you can't count on
and
that.
You're hoping that maybe Helm at tight end grows into that. But like just in terms of proven commodity, like Lockett was that. Lockett at this stage of his career probably isn't anymore. Like you're talking about a guy last year that had 49 catches, 600 yards, 2 touchdowns. So like Ridley is the one guy that you look at right now and there's a threat out there. And even him, I've said it, I think he's probably a really good number 2 in the league rather than an actual number 1 guy.
Yeah, Ridley is more of a number 2. His, best seasons kind of, I think, were as the number 2 to Julio.
Yeah.
When it was, when he was able to, Julio was able to take some of that coverage away from him. But yeah, I don't know if Ridley's going to be able to ever put up those wide receiver 1 numbers that they had kind of signed him for.
615-737-1025, our phone number. More your thoughts on our question of the day. Coming up next, which team will have the best season relative to expectations? Titans, Vols, and Vandy. We'll do that. We'll wrap up the show. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Taking your thoughts on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. The distinguished gentleman on YouTube is mad, Ian. Says that Tennessee has 7 wins at best on their schedule is what he says. So I was like, all right, let's go through this. Tennessee has Syracuse, East Tennessee State, UAB, Mississippi State. They've got Kentucky. They got Vanderbilt. They got New Mexico State. Those 7 right there. They will be heavily favored in all of those.
Yep.
Now, that doesn't mean they're going to win all of those, but they'll be heavily favored in all of those. So 7 being best case, I think, is ridiculous. Now, that doesn't mean that they're going to win 9. Like I said, if they win 9 games, I think it's a pretty good year for Heupel given the circumstances and what happened at quarterback. But the idea that like 7 games is best case scenario for this team, I just think is not living in reality. And that doesn't even factor in Arkansas at home, which is probably a toss-up. Oklahoma at home, which is probably a toss-up. And then you've got, your 3 really, really challenging games. Georgia, I would not give them much of a chance to win, although it is at home earlier in the year. But, until I see them beat Georgia at this point, I think you've just got to assume that's going to be a loss. Alabama on the road is going to be very difficult. So, Alabama's got questions of their own, but that's going to be a difficult game. And then on the road at Florida, and I said this, like until I see them win in the swamp, I'm just going to assume they're not because they haven't done it
hard to pick
since 2003. So you've got 3 really, really tough games if you're Tennessee. You have 7 that you're going to be heavily favored in, and you got a few more that are probably toss-ups along the way. So, like, the idea that they can't get to 9 wins this year, I don't think is living in reality. They absolutely can. That doesn't mean they will.
Yeah.
Now, I think they got to 6. Like, if they're 6-6 based on this schedule, I still think that's incredibly disappointing, even with the quarterback situation being what it is with the roster that they have. Like,
is there a number in particular that stands out to you that would be really disappointing? Is 6 the number? Is anything below?
I think 7's the number.
7.
Like, I think 6 is definitely disappointing. 7, like, depending on how it went, like, somebody get hurt along the way. You could factor a lot of those things in.
Yeah.
But like, assuming everybody's healthy, like I said, they're going to be a significant favorite in 7 of them. And then we'll see about the Arkansas and the Oklahomas of the world. Like, I think that if I had to pick right now what they're going to be, I would say they're probably an 8-4 team.
Who would get the most blame for a bad season? Is it Heupel or is it going right to Nico?
I think it'll start at Nico, and I think depending on how, like, the way they, like, are they competitive against Georgia? Are they competitive against Alabama? Do they go down the swamp and
That's
just get
fair.
annihilated?
Yeah.
Because then I think it'll start to shift to Heupel at that point. I remember, and I said it the day after Nico left, right? Like, everybody's all in on Heupel right now because he stood up to their guy. He stood up to Nico, and that's our guy. That's our coach. And that's great in April. It doesn't really play the same way in November, right? So I think there's pressure there. Like, if they go 8-4, that's not a disastrous year, but you're also not competing for the college football playoff at 8-4. Like, you're not getting a college football playoff.
Definitely not
at 8-4. So I'm with you. Like, the expectation with the college football expansion, like, everybody thinks they're going to make the playoff every year now.
Yeah.
And Tennessee's not. Like, they're not going to make the playoff every year. But when you look at the way it's gone, like, you were supposed to be building to, like, this was supposed to be the year that Nico came in and really took over to the next level. And now obviously he's not there. So how much of a wrench does that throw into everything?
I can assure you that the gap is closing.
My guy.
Hey, maybe. Jeremy Pruitt, the ghost of Jeremy Pruitt is alive and well.
Yeah.
And the gap is closing.
Yeah.
So maybe, I don't know, is there a situation this year, if it all goes to heck in a handbasket for Heupel, about any type of, like, going into next season with the fans mad and hot seat and stuff like that?
If it's bad this year, you would need, I don't think he's going to get fired this year if they're like 6-6.
No.
But let's say they went 6-6. I think he'd probably be on the hot seat the next year.
You think
for sure.
so?
Yeah. Like, I think that's how it would go in this league. And I don't know if that's fair, if that's unfair, but I know this place. I know the fan base. Like, that they would, he'd definitely be. I mean, look, if they go 6-6, he'll be on the hot seat with some of the fan base by like mid-October this year. So there's that too. Cameron says, I don't know, man. I have little faith in Aguilar. I don't think he's trash. I just think he's just a guy, and there are no receivers, and the starting running back is a walk-on. 8-4 is best case scenario, period. With Nico, we were going 9-3. Again, there are 7 games where they're going to be probably close to double-digit favorites in it. So I don't know how you could say 8 wins is best case scenario when they're going to be a 2-touchdown favorite in probably 7 of their games, right? Like, I'm not saying that they're going to go in the college football playoff, but I think you got to look at the schedule and the way that the schedule breaks down. Like they've got in terms of an SEC schedule, Tennessee's got a fairly decent one.
Oh yeah, you get Mississippi State on there, and I guess, well, I don't know. I guess there's not as many cross rivals anymore in the whole East-West whole situation with the schedule given the additions.
Like, how good is Oklahoma? I have no idea. Oklahoma was bad last year. Are they going to be is Brent Venables going to figure it out this year? I mean, and they're going to be really good.
Tennessee won at Oklahoma last year,
right?
So they're home this year against them. So I'd assume it would go about the same.
Like, I think Kentucky might be pretty bad this year. Vanderbilt, I don't think is going to be bad, but Tennessee is going to be favored against Vanderbilt.
And it's in Knoxville.
It's in Knoxville. They're going to be favored. They're going to be favored against Mississippi State. Their non-conference schedule is not that tough. Like Syracuse is an interesting game, but I mean, I could pull it up right now. I would guess Tennessee, even with the loss of Nico, is probably a double-digit favorite against Syracuse right now. I mean, I will pull it up.
Yeah,
as we speak.
Yeah, I would think so. And then the next week, you get your cupcake game. No offense to ETSU, but
I mean, Tennessee at the moment is a 12.5-point favorite against Syracuse.
Yeah, is that a home game or is that a neutral game?
Neutral site, so it's down in Atlanta.
Okay.
So I mean, there are going to be a lot of Tennessee fans there.
Yep.
But again, like I think people see the loss of the quarterback and they say, well, they're going to be bad.
Orange versus the orange.
But like you got to look at the schedule. Like the schedule it sets up semi nicely.
Yeah, it's a pretty easy schedule if you just look through it. Yeah.
So we'll see what that ultimately means. I do think like Tennessee, it will be the hardest for them to do what our question is today, and is to exceed, right? Like it'll be hardest for Tennessee.
I probably agree with
those expectations. We'll see. Like Vanderbilt's going to be really interesting. They've got that road gauntlet we talked about, but can you?
He's going to have some expectations for him going into this next year, given his whole NIL situation.
Like, can you win? Like the underrated part of last year, like it probably evened itself out at the end because you beat Alabama.
Yeah.
But they did lose to Georgia State last year, which is still probably one of the most inexplicable losses of the whole college football season was Vanderbilt losing to Georgia State. So we'll see if you can avoid that this year. But like if Vanderbilt found a way to get back to 6 wins this year, that'd be pretty darn good. So we'll see what happens on that front. Best of luck to Rexrode as he is, I think, at the urgent care right now. We'll get an update.
See if he makes his flight
at 6 a.m.
to New York
morning. That's going to do it for us today. We'll be back at 6 a.m. tomorrow. Jason Big Joe is coming up next. You're listening to 102.5, 106.3 The Game.